Welcome to the Vandy Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Lee. Today's guest is Mitch Light. He's the sideline reporter for Vanderbilt football, as well as the executive editor at Athlon Magazine. Today's show presented by the Well Coffee House, which is a Nashville area coffee house that provides fresh roasted coffee along with house-made pastries, breakfast, and lunch offerings. There are 4 locations to serve you in the Nashville area. Those can be found in Brentwood, Green Hills, downtown, and Bellevue. More information can be found at wellcoffeehouse.org. The Well Coffee House, where coffee changes lives. We also thank our co-sponsor, Wellspire, Nashville's Learning and Development Center, which is located in the Gulch. Today's news presented by Sutherland and Belk, a family-owned injury law firm. If you or a loved one has been hurt in any type of accident, call Taylor or Russell at 615-846-6200. See what your rights are and if they can help. Well, another bad weekend for Vanderbilt football. Commodores fall 56-0 to Florida in the Swamp and are now 2-7 on the season. Today's guest line is presented by our friends at Boll & Branch, which was started by Vanderbilt graduates Scott and Missy Tannen. I've slept on Boll & Branch sheets for a good 5 or 6 years now and have loved every minute of it. They are fair trade certified. That means they are made under safe conditions by men and women treated and paid fairly. Try them for a month. You can return them for free, but you're not going to want to. Once you get the sheets, try the mattress, which was voted best mattress of 2018. Go to bollandbranch.com. That is spelled B-O-L-L. Enter the promo code VANDY and get $50 off your first set of sheets. Mitch Light is with us now. He was in Gainesville for a football game that did not go so well, to put it mildly. He also got a chance to see the baseball scrimmage on Sunday, as well as the basketball opener. Mitch, appreciate you joining us today. Hope you're doing well.
I'm doing well, Chris. Always enjoy the trips to Gainesville. It's a fun place to watch a game. And, it was obviously did not go well for Vanderbilt, but honestly, not a big surprise when you factor in, the coming off the South Carolina disappointment and the quarterback situation. I don't think I've ever gone into a game where I've been watching Vanderbilt where the quarterback situation was as, I don't know, bleak is the right word, but just clearly they were going to struggle to move the ball and put points on the board. It's just you're going to have to need some crazy things happen, and they got a lot of those crazy things happen in the first half. Only to be on 14-0, forced some turnovers, a couple of fourth down stops. So played hard, played gritty, all those terms you want to throw for a half, and then obviously just caved in the second half, starting with Florida's first offensive play.
Well, there's a bunch of questions in the mailbag. We'll get to those later. Other than that, I just don't have much else to say. We have seen this movie a few times now.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to when you can't move the ball and it's one-dimensional. Teams know they can stop Keyshawn Vaughn, load the box. There's not much threat. Football's a pretty easy game for the defense, and you look at that Vanderbilt team on Saturday, and there wasn't much that scared a defensive coordinator, so they could just kind of tee off. So, yeah, I don't have much to add there.
Well, let's start with baseball and then work our way to basketball. I was not at Hawkins Field yesterday, but I saw it on TV. People sent me pictures. I was blown away with the number of people in attendance.
Yeah, it was great. I saw some people tweeting like, at 9:45, here's the line to get in 2 hours before, the game, 15 minutes before the gates open. I was like, what's the deal there? So I was like, okay. And then, so I was planning on going with my son. So I've got it down pretty, I know exactly when I can leave my house and get there for first pitch on a regular game. So we left a few minutes early, got there about 10 minutes to noon and couldn't find a seat. Basically had to go down the right field corner to find 2 seats together. And it was completely full, pretty much every seat taken, and then some people started going to the outfield. So yeah, a combination of great weather, I think excitement, celebrating, not that they were celebrating the national championship, but first time seeing the team after the national championship, and the price being free, obviously that helps too. So a lot of youth baseball teams there I saw. So yeah, great day, great event. Not the most exciting baseball. I think both teams were kind of going on fumes. I think Michigan had some injuries, and this was the end of their fall, and Vanderbilt obviously going with young pitching, young hitting. So it wasn't a lot of excitement, but saw a lot of new faces, and it was good to get out there.
Well, Michigan at least played some guys in the field who were major contributors last year. Vanderbilt didn't really play anybody other than Harrison Ray.
Yeah, Harrison Ray, Dominic Keegan and Justin Henry Malloy got a few at bats last year, and that's really it after that. So yeah, it was, there's some people around us who were like, you could tell they were fans, but they didn't really, not like they followed recruiting. It was like, who's this guy? Who's this guy? No one knew who anybody was. I think most people know who Jack Leiter is, but Ethan Smith was one of the few quote unquote veterans, being a sophomore, who even pitched.
Yeah, and Ethan was the only returning player who pitched of the six. I think he had one strikeout, and they combined to strike out 16 in 9 innings. Michigan had 3 hits, one double, and I don't know what the other two were. I think they were singles. In fact, I'm almost positive of that.
Yeah.
But yes, that was a really, really nice pitching performance from a lot of young guys who, frankly, look pretty talented from what I get to see.
Yeah. I left in the maybe 6th or 7th. I left. Is it Habaki? Sam Habaki? Is that how you pronounce his name?
Yeah.
I saw him pitch.
Or Habaki, I'm not sure. I think the L comes before the I.
Oh, yes, It does. So kid from LA, I believe. I saw him pitch. I didn't see Luke Murphy or is it McElvain? Pitch either. I actually, when I got home, I was watching some football. I put the game on my laptop, but I wasn't really paying that much attention. I was more watching the football game. So, but yeah, it's not a lot of batted balls. Sort of like a major league game, although there were no home runs. Not a lot of batted balls in play either. Defensively, did see. I don't know. Was he credited with Parker Nolan? Was he credited with 2 errors? No, I guess he only made one of the errors. Maybe Hayes went in for third base.
Hayes made the error that basically cost them the game.
Yes. So, yeah, I mean, the defense, other than that, made 2 errors, but not much to, there's really not much to complain about anyway. Not that you complain in fall ball or talk about, because sure, some of these guys will be playing prominent roles, but we don't know which ones, and it's just basically a fall exhibition. So again, just fun to get out there. Michigan's pitching. I don't know those guys. I didn't recognize any of the names, but those guys, Michigan's pitchers, look pretty good too.
The attendance is the intriguing part to me. I've always felt that their attendance never really kept up with their success, and the crowds have been very less than vocal in recent years. I wonder now, with a national title in pocket and a lot of guys back, and Vanderbilt's going to be preseason top 5 next year and probably the year after that. So I do wonder now, you throw Kumar Rocker in there too. He's going to be the face of college baseball. He was a guy that got a lot of attention. And I think I've said this on the show before. I had a lot of people texting me during the College World Series or during the regional or super regionals who were locked into those games, who were not ordinarily Vanderbilt fans or really, in a lot of cases, college baseball fans. I really wonder if what you saw with attendance is a harbinger of what is coming.
Yeah, well, we'll find out. This is a topic for another discussion for another day, maybe. I don't know enough about the stadiums around the league, but I've always felt that Vanderbilt Stadium hurts its attendance. That, like, with the finite amount of seats in the infield and then the outfield. Whereas if it was, it holds what, like 3,200 if it's a sellout? Is that what they announced? Like, I felt if there was just 3,200 in an infield bowl, there'd be a lot more people at the games. The fact that they're quote unquote sold out in season tickets in the infield hurts their attendance, I believe, because it doesn't allow for as many walk-ups. If you don't want to go sit in the outfield, if that makes sense. Just the construction of it, the infield bowl being small, just because the nature of baseball, if you have season tickets, not everyone goes to every game, so there's tickets that are unused. So again, it's for other people to figure that out. I'm sure they try to figure it out. But I don't always think it's a lack of, because there's an interest in the program because they sell those seats, and I know people who would go if they were available but don't want to sit in the outfield. So that's again another topic. But I think every year the program continues to win. Interest will grow, and I think you're definitely right about Kumar Rocker. I think there's just people that want to see him pitch.
Capacity is 3,700, and okay. I do think that the ticketing thing, I'm guessing Malcolm Turner will look into that. Just so many of those seats are bought behind home plate but never used or almost never used. I agree with you. I think if you could get people in those seats and you just have a number of seats that are basically locked off from the public,
Right.
and it just seems like, and I'm not kidding, it seems like, and I started kind of noticing this in 2007 and sort of paying attention, and maybe I'm getting confirmation bias, but it just seems like they get an inordinate amount of games. And some of this is just you start baseball in February, and that's just what happens for the next 2 or 3 months. But it does seem like they have an inordinate amount of bad weather for home games, even for the season. In other words,
Yeah.
it seems like I've seen so many times the weather will be 60 degrees, maybe high 50s for 5 or 6 straight days. And then you bring them home for a weekend and it's 40 degrees and windy and rain in the forecast
Yeah.
for 3 days. It just seems like that is, they have kind of been cursed on weather, it seems to me.
Yeah, there's no doubt that you'll see that. I remember there's been some early season games. Maybe it's the excitement of the season starting, but there's a Duke game on a Saturday where the weather was, or Sunday where the weather was pretty good for early in the season. It was packed, and then you might go the next weekend and it's like you said, 40 degrees. So a lot of that has to do with it, and then it's so weather driven, just because it's you're sitting out there for 2, 3, 4 hours if you stay for the whole game, and no one wants to be out there when it's, even Tim Corbin's joke. He's like, I wouldn't be there if I didn't have to be when, it's 40 degrees and they're playing a Tuesday game. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely a fun experience, but there's a lot of factors involved too.
Mitch, anything else on baseball, or do you want to go ahead and talk hoops?
Not really. Not really. I just, like everyone else, I'm very interested to see how all the puzzle pieces fit. This season, I think there's certain guys we can plug in there that we know are going to play, but I would imagine this year, more so than previous years, it's going to take Tim Corbin and his staff longer to settle on that everyday lineup, something they did last year pretty early. And, there wasn't a lot of mystery whenever they would tweet out those lineups last year, when usually especially early in the year, there's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, and I think the thing, if I have one takeaway or one summary, or maybe two summary sentences from yesterday, we still don't know about the offense. And yesterday being Sunday, we were doing this on a Monday afternoon. Doesn't tell us anything else about the lineup, but I think we did find that you saw 9 innings from guys that, other than Ethan Smith, you're not going to see on weekends, at least to start the season. Now, Jack Leiter might break in there. It might take an injury. It might not. He may be their 3 starter by the end of the year. But I think the first few weekends of the season, they got 16 strikeouts from guys that you're not going to see on the weekend, which is an incredible indication of pitching depth.
Yeah, one thing we talked a lot last year last year's team ended up having the high-end talent. J.J. Bleday, obviously Austin Martin, and then late in the year, Kumar Rocker. But one thing that we talked about, I thought, last year was the overall depth of the program, the roster. I think we're just, as they keep stockpiling recruiting classes, we're just seeing more talent throughout the entire roster than we've seen. They've had great teams, obviously, throughout the Tim Corbin era, but just seems like we're in a run right now where the roster talent 1 through 35 or 36, whatever the number is as good as it's ever been.
Yeah, and no case, on no team that I remember was that ever the case more than last year's.
Yes, agree.
Hoops. I thought it was a good start for Vanderbilt in basketball on Friday. What did you think?
Yeah, I did. I enjoyed it. Obviously the first 10 minutes and the last 10 minutes were the best. You can't, the team went as the 3-point shooting went. It was very good early, and then it was very good late. It's no secret, I wasn't a big fan of the offense that was, quote unquote run last year, where it transgressed into clear out for Saban Lee way too many times. Not to his fault, just not a lot of movement. I thought there was more structure in the offense. There's definitely some defensive miscues. There's too many easy shots at the rim, but I don't question Jerry Stackhouse's commitment to defense, and coaching defense. So I'm confident this team will be good defensively. I don't know the overall talent level. It's going to be a struggle as the competition increases. Aaron Nesmith was great, I thought, and looked really good offensively, very comfortable. Saban Lee was very good. Scottie Pippen did some good things. He's going to once he gets into more physical players, I think he's going to, run some issues with his size or lack of size. If Cleavon Brown, I don't think he's going to shoot 75% from three, Chris, but if he can just be a 35% shooter, something that I thought he could be as a freshman, but really did not shoot well last couple of years. And they interviewed Neesmith after the game and talked about, how Cleavon really worked on his three-point shooting, and Jerry Stackhouse continues to rave about him just as an overall player. So that was really encouraging to see. And I loved how they ran a play for Cleavon to start the season. That was pretty cool to see. And, Max Evans, it's clear that Jerry Stackhouse loves his defense, gave him the start there. And I think he's a capable shooter. He went 2 for 3, and I think he's a guy that can shoot in the mid to high 30s from three. Dylan Dessou, for all we heard about, I don't question, this was only one game, his first college game. I'm sure there were butterflies. Obviously he didn't shoot the ball well, but we've heard good things about him. So, I still don't have high expectations at all for this team, but it was a fun game, and I think it's going to be a fun team to watch.
Seabass and I did a podcast the day of the game. I didn't air it till the day after. I was literally doing it like at 4:00 that afternoon and leaving for the gym. And so it was dated by the time we did it, but I went back and listened to it again. I think I said on there, and I don't remember the exact point total, but he had said, I think he had Vanderbilt scoring like 79. I said, I think that's a little bit high. Now, I knew that SEMO is one of the probably 4 or 5 weakest teams on their schedule. But again, they've been so offensively challenged. And being an opener, I thought, probably 70s, maybe 60s if it really doesn't go well. I think for them to get 83, and again, I would not read a lot into it.
But shooting 50% from the floor.
Well, yes, and 14 three-pointers and some things like that. I think that was an encouraging step. I mean, all you can do is you can play what's in front of you. And could they have had 90-something or 100-something? Sure. But they were efficient. They showed some offensive competency. And again, it's part of the opponent. And SEMO didn't have big guards. Like, their guys, they not only had guys that were not big as guards in terms of height, but they were kind of slim too, which affects your ability to defend and play physically. But all things considered, I thought that was encouraging.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, there's teams that have lost, and Vanderbilt plays enough of these bye games that they might lose one, just the way the nature of it. Northwestern lost to Merrimack, who's a new Division I team. They lost by 10 at home. These things happen. Sometimes there's first game jitters. That was good to see that there were no first game jitters, at least. And maybe other than, I thought Otan Jankovic looked a little out of sorts there. But for Vanderbilt to come out and take that big lead was encouraging, rather than, fall behind with some jitters and stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, clearly don't want to read too much into it, but I like what I saw. I was just, after seeing 20 or 18 years of Kevin Stallings and then 3 years of Bryce Drew, who, was up and around and waving his arms and stuff like that. It was just weird to see a coach just basically just sit there and watch and not much emotion. And there were a couple times where he got up and argued. I think the officials will really like and respect Jerry Stackhouse, because he doesn't argue. And then there might be a time or two where he does, and they know that's where he where he has a problem with other coaches that argue every call. So I'm interested to see as the program grows, if the team gets better in the next couple of years, if he'll be more show more emotion on the sidelines, but he's pretty stoic over there.
Well, I never say a game doesn't mean anything, because you saw some crazy upsets. I think somebody mentioned, I didn't catch this, that Nicholls State, which is usually one of the worst teams around year in and year out, beat Pitt this weekend.
Well, Pitt beat Florida State, and Florida State just beat Florida, and Nicholls beat Pitt. So they go figure that one.
Yeah, you're making the point I'm not trying to make so well, that a lot of stuff can happen. And I think did Richmond not get beat by somebody? I'm looking it up as we speak.
No, Richmond won.
Okay, Richmond won.
Northwestern lost to Merrimack.
Okay, here's what it was. Richmond beat St. Francis of Pennsylvania 100-98.
Yeah, I was monitoring that score the other day. I was monitor scores and stuff, and I knew Vanderbilt played Richmond soon. So Richmond was losing when I saw that score at one point.
Yeah, and Richmond is kind of a veteran team, so I don't know. But I think if they can by chance go to Richmond on, I think it is Thursday, and get a win there, that would be a big step forward for them right now.
Yeah, I think just a confidence boost. Right now, Ken Palm only has Vanderbilt at a 27% chance of winning that game. Now, Ken Palm's ratings for this team are very low right now. As more games happen, they should move up a little bit if they win. By the way, 88% chance of winning tonight. Texas A&M Corpus Christi tonight, coached by former Vanderbilt wannabe coach Willis Wilson, long time fans will remember that he was basically petitioned for the job after Jan Van Bredikoff got fired, and I think the word he used was he was irked that Vanderbilt did not interview him or call him back or something. He was at Rice at the time, so he's still coaching, and he's at Texas A&M Corpus Christi.
Yes, I think I managed to incorporate the word irked into the preseason preview we wrote about them. So because you have to, but
yeah,
yeah, that one. I mean, again, anything can happen, but I'm interested to see what happens in the coming games. I thought two big storylines out of this game that we haven't really discussed. A lot of people have been critical of Jerry Stackhouse and said, well, if he doesn't realize Saban Lee is one of his 5 best players and he's not very bright, which was completely over the top. And I understand why people might criticize it, but I always felt his reasoning was sound, that they're not a deep team. And like if you're subbing in 2-3 guys at a time, you don't have many big offensive guns to go around. Saban Lee is potentially one of your 2 or 3 biggest. He is one of your 2 or 3 biggest. I think that the way he is using him makes a lot of sense, and I thought that bore out. And look, maybe eventually they come to a point where they're better off having him in the starting lineup, but given their lack of depth in terms of scoring on the wing, I thought that the way that he has worked it out in his head, I think it really worked out well on the floor, according to plan.
Agree 100%. It kind of makes sense. You know, he's got 2 guys from the perimeter. Like, again, Max Evans will hit some threes and he'll do some things, but he's not a guy you look is as a primary scorer. So bringing Saban Lee off the bench, it staggers the minutes a little bit. You don't want to get caught with Lee and Nesmith off the floor. So I think it makes total sense. It appears Saban Lee's fine with it with his buy-in. He's played 28 minutes. He's going to play a ton of minutes for this team. So I don't, he was asked about it after the game, and he made that quote, or Jerry Stackhouse, about starting versus starters and all that. So not an issue with me at all.
Post is where I think they're in trouble. Ejike Obinna showed some things good. He also showed some things that weren't so good. And now he has got, I believe, 8 fouls in 16 minutes, if you include the exhibition game. Not uncommon for big guys.
Yeah, probably should have been whistled for another one.
Yeah.
He kind of threw the guy away. Yeah, he's got to cut down on the fouls, obviously. His body looks good. I mean, he looks, the staff's been raving about him. He looks the part and all that. He's just, is a year off. I'd love to see him get more confident. He's got to score around the basket on the putbacks and the dunks and stuff like that. He's got to be able to convert those. So I'm interested to see what his minutes will look like if he can stay out of foul trouble. Because, it's different games and, each game brings its different challenges, but that they were a smaller team. Maybe this wasn't a game for him. If there's some more size on the other future opponents, he'll get more minutes. But I'm interested to see how he fits in the rotation when he does stay out of foul trouble.
Well, and I think that's now one of the keys for the team will be Cleavon Brown staying out of foul trouble, because
we know, no foul, by the way.
Yeah, and we know he can defend. He's had 2 games of 8 blocks. We knew that he had flashed shooting at some point. We didn't know if that was just a thing that he flashed, it wouldn't come back. But as you pointed out, they draw up a play for him. He hits as many threes in the first, I think, minute 40 as he hit all last year in 520-something minutes. So if they can get some, maybe more than token offensive contribution, because, he got 15 points and he knocked down 3 threes. That's not token offensive contribution, but say he can give them 8-9 points a night, 6 boards, 2 blocks. Suddenly, if you can keep him on the floor, that's workable if you can get scoring out of Nesmith and Lee.
Yeah, no, I agree. I totally agree. But like you said, staying on the floor is going to be key, just lack of big bodies. I'm sure you've noticed that Peyton Willis is off to a good start at Minnesota. That's one I just never understood Bryce Drew. And, I thought Peyton Willis was a nice player and was a guy who's going to continue to improve. And he's been one of Minnesota's primary scorers. It'd be really nice for Vanderbilt to have another 3-point threat there. So I think that was a swing and a miss by Bryce Drew. I think most people know he was basically asked not to return.
Well, they threw the baby out with the bathwater on so many of those guys. It was kind of like, Roberson, they helped develop. Cornette, they helped develop a little bit that last year too. But it just seemed like half the roster they just didn't have any use for, and they made a mistake on that one.
Yes, totally agree. And he'd be a senior now. He's a junior at Minnesota. I'm sure he improved in his year off and all that. But just to me, it was clear he's a guy that was an SEC caliber player and someone you'd want on your roster.
Are you ready for the mailbag?
Sure.
Our mailbag sponsored by Vanderbilt fan Josh Minton, an independent insurance agent operating out of Brentwood. If you're looking for a one-stop shop to take care of your insurance needs, Josh can help. Call him at 615-933-1979. Email him at josh@hqinsurance.com. Follow him at Joshua Minton HQ or facebook.com/Josh or JD Minton HQ. By the way, that first one, the Twitter handle at Joshua Minton HQ. He's my insurance agent. Give him a try. Tell him you heard about him on the podcast. VU in Georgia leads us off with this. Why would Mason attempt a 50-yard field goal down by 49?
I had no problem with that. I would have, I think that the big problem was getting the delay of game penalty. It was 4th and long, I believe. The offense had done nothing. I know some people had a problem when I was standing next to someone on the sidelines and I said, I'd kick here. You don't want to get shut out. I mean, what's the difference between 7 points and 3 points? If some people have a problem with it, I get it. There's a lot of things to find fault with the program right now in the game. To me, that's very low on the list. And
yeah,
I disagree. That's fine.
I think you had more chance. And again, this is sort of arguing about the deck chairs on my Titanic as it relates to Saturday, but I think that they had a better chance getting Riley Gay to hit one from 50 than they did scoring. In fact, if they play that drive out the way it was going, Florida might score.
Right.
So
Vanderbilt only had one really good drive, and it got down to the 15-yard line, and then the fumble in the touchdown. So yeah, I didn't have confidence that Vanderbilt was going to score a touchdown there. So again, I had absolutely no problem. But the issue was the delay of game. Now, I don't know if there's a clock issue because the holder Smith was kind of making that motion about resetting the play clock, like if it didn't reset. I don't think there was a problem with it, but you got to get the kickoff in time, especially on a long kick. It's going to be 5 yards. It wouldn't have mattered. Maybe it did matter. Maybe Riley tried to overkick it since it was 50 yards, and he would have been more natural if it was from 45 yards. So, again, I had no problem with it.
Mr. Vandy wants to know, should the hit of Bowler be looked at for targeting? I don't know how much you got to see that on replay, and I don't know how much you've wanted to go back and watch that again now that you've been home. But my opinion in watching that live was absolutely.
Yeah, I did not see it. The sidelines at Florida are kind of narrow, and I was on the other end. And Joe, so I didn't even see it on. I don't think they didn't show the replay. And Joe and Norman up in the booth, who I'm listening to, definitely thought it was targeting. They did review it, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I don't believe they ever did. Okay. I mean, to me, it looked like I've seen more egregious targeting, but it looked like textbook targeting. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's what Joe said. It had everything, like the launch, everything about it. So I can't comment on it. I didn't. I didn't see it. I went back and watched the first couple drives of the game, but I did not watch that. So I did. I was watching Missouri on Saturday night, and I watched Gillespie go around and make a play, and I got mad. Like I'm sure the kid feels bad about it. In fact, I've heard he does feel bad about it. But you got a guy like Mo Hassan who might not play again this year on one of the dirtiest hits you'll see, and that guy's playing. I mean, I don't know would you suspend the guy for 3 games. I don't know what the penalty should be, but that annoyed me watching him play and knowing that Mo can't play.
Kyle Westman said on Twitter that he thought, and by the way, this question from Theodore 8, that he thought the team looked really defeated during the game on Saturday. I know you don't like to comment on whether players have given up, but what do you think about comments like these from former players?
Well, I will say I can understand why players would feel defeated. And they know the deal. They know that the quarterback situation is what it is, that with Deuce Wallace played the whole South Carolina game except for the first series, and that the offense really struggled. They know they're going to play Florida. There's good energy at the early. They got the 4th down stop, and they got the interception. And then you fall down 14-0. They know what the deal is. So I don't blame, their players for being dejected. Did I sense it more than other games? Maybe a little bit. But I think at some point, you got to be realistic, and you can't fake energy, you can't fake enthusiasm when you're down 28 nothing, third quarter, 40, whatever like that, it's like, human nature takes over. So I think that's a fair assessment, but I think I wasn't surprised by it.
I don't know what you pick up on, because watching the game and watching what they focus in on from TV are different things, but the SEC network was certainly noticing that Keyshawn Vaughn stood on the sidelines with his arms crossed through the last quarter and did not look engaged with the team at all.
Well, I think that's fair to say. I mean, he threw his helmet coming off one time, and Keyshawn has had issues like that in the past, and I understand his frustration. He's not getting much help out there right now, but if I'm Keyshawn, I know there's NFL scouts watching me. How do you handle adversity? And do you sit by yourself or do you engage with your teammates? And that matters. And he chose to do one, so that's his prerogative, obviously. But that's clearly happened.
Door King says, any thoughts on Alan Walters? Thought he seemed to show some talent.
Hard to say. I mean, he showed some mobility. First pass was intercepted, then I think he rolled out. I think the bar was so low in that game that it's like, wow, he completed a pass. I don't know. There's what the long term plan is for him, if he's in the long term plans. But there's a reason that they're in a dire quarterback situation, and he didn't play until the fourth quarter, basically. We'll see what happens this week as they get prepared. My guess is Riley Neal will be, Riley Neal traveled. I think he's was close to getting cleared. So my guess is Riley Neal would be number one on the depth chart. We'll see who's number two. I think that will be telling. My guess it'll be Deuce Wallace, and I just hope they can go wire to wire with Riley.
Matthew00 says, during Mason's post-game conference, that'd be press conference, he said changes were coming. What do you think he means?
No idea. I didn't hear that. I'm in the locker room. I'm with him when he's talking to Joe. So I don't know what changes you can make now. I mean, obviously they're not changing anything drastically on offense in this late in the season. Like, what are you going to do? The quarterback situation is what it is. You're still going to feed Keyshawn Vaughn at running back. Your offensive line, I know Cole Clemens got hurt. I have no idea. It was some sort of leg injury. Did not look great. So I think we probably see Jonathan Stewart in the lineup there. So I don't know. Some Derek could have been. I don't know what he could have been talking about.
Yeah, I have no idea. Should have gotten to this one about 5 minutes ago. Ann Arbador says, what does the NCAA have to do to de-incentivize dirty play? For example, using a marginal player to take out a high-value player by inflicting a concussion that will keep the high-value player out far longer than the one-game targeting suspension.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't think that doesn't really happen very much. I don't think Missouri, if he's suggesting that Missouri intentionally took out Mo Hassan, that's not the case. I mean, I think it was a dirty hit that the kid probably wishes he had back. And it's not like the rest of the SEC is really worried about, Vanderbilt starting a walk-on quarterback. Mo looked good in that game, and hopefully he comes back. I watch a ton of college football, and I can't see, that there's really ever intentional targeting where guys are trying to take someone out. There's violent hits. It's football, and guys are targeting not really by design. They're doing it just because that's the way people have tackled for a while, and they're trying to get that out of the game. So I don't think it's an issue. And I know there's been people who have said, well, Gillespie shouldn't play until Mo Hassan comes back. Well, that sounds okay. I'm sure the SEC has the ability to come in and suspend guys for more games. They didn't in that case. I don't remember it being done, but I don't think it's a widespread problem.
96 Door says, offenses frequently use screen passes to running backs to neutralize a blitzing defense. Over the last 2 years, the screen to Keyshawn has been one of Vandy's most explosive plays. Florida seemed to bring at least one extra man on most passing downs, but I don't think a single screen pass was called. Maybe Florida was keying on Keyshawn so much during the game that this wasn't an option, but I was surprised to see this missing from the game plans. Do you have thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised they haven't run the screen a little bit more this year. It was so successful. I don't know the reasons why it wasn't run Saturday, if they're not comfortable with Deuce throwing it, or if it was something that Florida was doing to prevent it. So I really don't know, but I would agree. It was such a big part of the offense last year, and I thought for years Vanderbilt was not a very good screen team, but the last few years have been very, very good.
Mitch, that's the end of the mailbag. Anything that we didn't get to regarding Vanderbilt, regarding college football, regarding James Wiseman, that is worth discussion before we end today's show?
Nope, not really. Obviously the Wiseman thing's a interesting situation. I know there's a lot of pros and cons, people on both sides of the argument. There are rules. People might not like the rules, but there are rules as they exist now, and you know, you can debate Penny Hardaway being a booster or not being a booster, but it just seemed like a situation that was not legal, if that's the right, because the NCAA is not they're not laws, there are rules. That was against the rules. So I'm interested to see how this pans out. I would love to see him play. I watched some of their first game. He's an exciting player, but definitely an interesting situation to follow.
Mitch, I appreciate your time today. Tell people where they can get any Athlon issues that they might want. The college basketball issue, I'm sure, is still on stands. And, of course, give out your Twitter handle.
Okay, Athlon Mitch, and then college basketball mags are on newsstands pretty much everywhere, or at athlonsports.com/store.
Thank you, Mitch.
No problem, Chris. Take care, bud.
He is Mitch Light. I'm Chris Lee of the Vandy Sports Podcast. Stay tuned. This week, we've got several more episodes that we are going to drop.